Tap the bottom.
Hello.
There you go. Okay. You can take your mask off. It is 11:07.
Hello. All right, we're going to get started. And I am going to do the fun. Welcome to Sunday Assembly. I love seeing your beautiful 1/3 of faces. It has been so long. This is our 86th Sunday Assembly here in San Diego.
Yay.
This is our 17th online assembly.
All right.
And this is our very first hybrid assembly with half in person and half online. And I just want to say this is our first time doing this. We understand there are technical difficulties. Hello, Zoomies. Hello, Zoomies from the Roomies. In my kids' elementary school, they call the room kids Roomies and the Zoom kids Zoomies. So
That works.
So you're my roomies and you're my zoomies. And zoomies, I know there's some internet issues. We're hoping to have that all worked out for next time. This was kind of a test to see how our local Wi-Fi could handle things, and stay with us. We'll have some people on to keep you company, and hopefully you can follow along with the rest of our assembly. So every assembly has a theme. This theme is information. Information, birds, information, informing. My name is Alexis Record. I am the Executive Director of Sunday Assembly San Diego, and I always forget to introduce myself, so also known as that lady that sometimes MCs. And I'm just so thankful you're all here. We have a media-free zone over here, and our media-free zone for our Zoomies is you turn your monitor off, or hide your screen. Turning your monitor off might not work. I am not really technically savvy. We don't have childcare today. We are hoping to work that out in the future possibly, but for today, you get to be your own childcare. It's great. I'm sure the parents in the room have many experience with this over the last 18 months. All right, let's see, did I miss anything? No, I'm good. I think we're good.
Okay.
What's up, Paul?
Want to sing a song?
Yeah, I want to sing a song.
Let's sing a song. Oh, with real people in the room. Woo! So the online ones were the weirdest experience in the world for me for a while, because I'm used to people singing along. That's sort of what I do, and it was just me in my room and faces going, and we couldn't hear each other. It was bizarre. I kind of got used to it, but now I'm really glad to be back. So let's sing this song. If you don't know it, you will in a moment. It goes like this. Welcome to Sunday Assembly. I look around the room and must say, to familiar old faces and new ones, we're glad that you came here today. Next part. We're glad that you came here today. We're glad that you came here today. To familiar old faces and new ones, we're glad that you came here today. See how that works? Easy, easy. When the assembly is over, we hope that you don't have to run. We'd really like to get to know you, so stick around after we're done. Let me hear you now. Oh, stick around after we're done. Stick around after we're done. We'd really like to get to know you, so stick around after we're done. We like to sing songs when we gather, so rock, pop, and ballads we croon. We raise up our voices in verses, and sometimes we sing them in tune. Oh, sometimes we sing them in tune. Hey, sometimes we sing them in tune. We raise up our voices voices in verses, and sometimes we sing them in tune. When we're all done with the program, and after we sing the last song, introduce yourselves to one another, and you won't be a stranger for long. No, you won't. Oh, you won't be a stranger for long. No, you won't be a stranger for long. Introduce yourselves to one another, and you won't be a stranger for long. So welcome to Sunday Assembly. We greet you with a wide open door. We're certainly glad that you joined us to live better, help off, and wonder more. Live better, help off, and wonder more. Live better, help off, and wonder more. We're certainly glad that you joined us to live better, help off, and wonder
Now it feels like a real Sunday assembly. Our campy songs. And if anybody else didn't grow up like I did with hymnals, in the old Baptist church, you always say oft, O-F-T, the old-fashioned oft, and it makes those syllables work. So that's a substitution trick you are welcome to use. So Sunday Assembly is a secular, non-religious community of people that meets monthly, sometimes in person. And our motto is to live better, help oft, wonder more. And this, again, we're in the 80s now, 86 times that we've done this. And we're just so excited you're here. If you're new to Assembly and you feel comfortable raising your hand, no new people, great. Oh, no new people. Yay, I get to embarrass someone. I'm sorry. That was me a few years ago, and my very first assembly, I came with my cousin because I was too scared to come by myself, and something secular seemed that was not my whole scene, and I came and I loved it, and my very first assembly ever, I became the chairperson of outreach that became community services and got put to work immediately, so look forward to that. All right, so Sunday Assembly is a community. That is our big goal. And one of the things community does is share what's going on in our lives. So I think it's been a while, because usually we have one or two of these. I have a handful of these from our assemblers, so in random order. From our roomies, Mark and Amy over in the corner added 7-month-old puppies to the family. Their names are Deacon and Josie, and they're delightful monsters keeping us very busy. All right, and from our Zoomblers, Sandra got a job promotion at work, effective as of today. Congratulations, Sandra, over in Zoomland. All right, changing tone a bit. Auda and Dan desired to find homes for some of their pets because of poor health. Unfortunately, there are some of the hard decisions one has to make as a pet owner. Auda speaking, I don't want to give them up, but they are no longer getting the attention they need. We will miss them dearly. If you are in need of a bearded dragon, we are looking for homes. No. No. Maybe. From Laura and Michelle, we are adopting a puppy. Her name is Apple, and she is on her way to us now, arriving tomorrow night. We are very excited. Our 4 cats, not so much. Alrighty. Whoops. Are these both Diane's? Diane, are these both yours? Both? Okay. I don't know what order they go in. I'll start with this one and backtrack if I have to. Wayne and Diane's 4-year-old granddaughter, Emily, is isolated at home with her parents pending a COVID test. Emily's vaccinated preschool teacher who tested negative early last week, tested positive when she became ill later in the week. Okay. Thursday, Diane returned from visiting her 86-year-old parents in Omaha. I can spell, or I can read. Let's see. Friday, Diane enjoyed her first show at the Outdoor Moonlight Theater in Vista. Thank you for those. Sorry for my reading skills. All right. Unless we have any more Zoomies, which Michelle is calling a Zoomblers, this will be our last one. From Lynn Warner. On Friday, I went up to LA to see Dr. Figueroa, a very important doctor person. After 7.5 years in living in San Diego, this was my first appointment with a doctor who uses vagal nerve stimulator implants with patients who have treatment-resistant depression. It felt wonderful and was hugely important for keeping my major depression under good control. Thank you, Dr. Warner. That is amazing news. All right, and Sunday Assembly also does Help Happens next, which is where we talk about what our community service projects have been. We haven't been able to do a lot of in-person stuff, but we are starting to toe back into that. So Betsy. Would you like this?
Hi, good morning. The outreach team at Sunday Assembly continues bringing dinner once a month to 34 people who get to sleep legally in their cars in a gated lot. Since the beginning of COVID, the number has gone up from 24 to 34. Most of the occupants are working, but just barely getting by. With the weather getting colder, we've decided to do another blanket drive. It'll be October. So please bring blankets to next month's assembly if you have any gently used blankets. Or, of course, a cash donation, and we'll purchase some so we can keep these folks comfortable overnight in their cars. Thanks.
Thanks, Betsy. And this is the same car park we've worked with before. And if your blankets are just in need of a little sewing or a good wash, just drop them off at my house. Alrighty, let's see. I didn't read this ahead of time, so let's see. Sunday Assembly is volunteer run. We run on monthly donations. If you are a recurring monthly donor in any amount, so like $5 a month, you get voting membership and you can vote in our little elections we do. We're also looking for new board members. That's coming up. It's been a while since we've been in person, so hi, I'm part of the board. You can come up to me, Betsy, Lynn, Lauren, Michelle, and Jen over there, and any of us, and talk about, hey, I kind of want to be on the ground floor of what you're doing in San Diego, and or I just want to volunteer and not be part of the board, or I just want to get my feet wet and come to a board meeting and like see what this is about. I did that. Warning. Visited some board meetings, and yeah. Hi, new people. I think it's time for our speaker. No, reading. And I have the reading. If Alicia would come up.
Good morning. Mysteries, Yes, by Mary Oliver. Truly, we live with mysteries too marvelous to be understood. How grass can be nourishing in the mouths of the lambs, how rivers and stones are forever in allegiance with gravity, while we ourselves dream of rising. How two hands touch and the bonds will never be broken. How people come from delight or the scars of damage to the comfort of a poem. Let me keep my distance always from those who think they have the answers. Let me keep company always with those who say, look, and laugh in astonishment and bow their heads.
Thank you, Alicia. Gorgeous. Oh, I'm so happy to be here in person. I dressed up. And I'm not looking at your faces through a Zoom screen. I'm really excited to have David Ringer with us. David is a birder, a writer, a daily student of the natural world. He's the former Chief Network and Communications Officer at the National Audubon Society, so he likes the birdies. He was the communications manager at Audubon in Louisiana during the 2010 BP oil spill, if you all remember that. He is working as a web developer and as a biological field technician, and he is the co-founder of Green Jay Strategies, a full-service boutique strategy communications firm. We are very happy to have him. My kids call him Uncle Bolt. Thank you so much for joining us. Uncle Bolt.
Thank you. Hi. I met a few of you over Zoom, but it's so nice to be together in person, meet some more of you, and welcome to folks who are joining Sunday Assembly for the first time. So I'm actually going to start with another poem, just the first stanza of a poem that sets the tone for what we're going to talk about today. If we can go to the next slide. I caught this morning morning's minion, kingdom of daylight's dauphin, dapple dawn-drawn falcon in his riding of the rolling level underneath him steady air, and striding high there, how he rung upon the rein of a wimpling wing, in his ecstasy, then off forth on swing as a skate's heel swoops smooth on a bow bend, the hurl and gliding, rebuffed by the big wind, my heart in hiding, stirred for a bird, the achieve of the mastery of the thing. That's from a poem called The Wind Hover by Gerard Manley Hopkins. Thank you. Gerard Manley Hopkins was a Victorian English poet who popularized the idea of sprung rhythm and really was an influential poet in a lot of ways. He loved nature, and a lot of his inspiration came from birds and other wildlife around his home in the UK. So this is the kestrel that he was writing about, a bird that hovers in the air, stationary, looking around on the ground for prey. If it spots a mouse or a grasshopper, it suddenly drops to catch what it was eyeing. The wind hover. We have, since we began to imagine, found our imaginations inspired by flight. Some of the earliest Neolithic art in caves in Europe is of birds. So for we human beings, bound to the ground by the inexorable force of gravity, the notion of being able to fly and take to the air has inspired us for generations. We finally figured out how with the technology behind us, but over the 4 billion years of life on Earth, many animals have figured out how to do this with nothing but their own bodies. So today we're going to look at some of the wonder and mystery of flight across the animal kingdom. Next slide, please. We're also showing the slides for the folks on Zoom, so hopefully everybody is getting the visuals here. So first, we may remember the basics, right? When a solid object is moving through a fluid, whether a gas or a liquid, there is pressure that is exerted on that solid object by the fluid. We're not aware of this most of the time in the air, but if you're walking into a stiff wind, that's one of the dimensions of force. That's drag that you're experiencing when you're leaning into the wind, right? There's another force that's exerted perpendicular to the object, and that's lift. And when conditions are just right, the lift can actually move an object vertically up against the force of gravity. And so this is what we ourselves, through our technology, and many animals have figured out how to harness. Next slide. So there's a lot of animals that have figured out how to glide. This is non-powered flight. They're able to get into a gliding position and use lift to go a certain distance. So in the top left here, there's a flying fish. You have some of these in the waters off the coast of San Diego. They're sort of circumtropical and warmer seas around the world. These are medium-sized fish, and when they're threatened by predators under the water, they're able to powerfully thrust their tails underneath the water and launch themselves above the surface of the water into the air. As soon as they come out of the water into the air, they spread out these very long, stiff fins. And they're able to glide sometimes hundreds of yards across the surface of the water before they drop back in, hopefully to safety from whatever was threatening them wherever they launched. So this is not powered flight, right? As soon as they're in the air, they're stiff like a paper airplane. They're able to maybe take advantages of microcurrents in the air over the surface of the water, but they cannot flap their fins to generate more thrust to keep their flight going. So they power themselves into the air, and then once they're there, they're locked on a course and they just go as far as they can. That's gliding. Lots of animals do this. The animated GIF there is a lizard genus in Southeast Asia called Draco, and they have elongated ribs and a pouch of skin on each side of their body, and they can jump off a tree trunk like you see this animation here. They can expand their ribs into the pockets of skin and create a little sail out of their own bodies. Scientists have recently discovered that they latch on, so that the skin is not attached to their limbs, but they latch on to that sail with their forelimbs, with their little hands, and they can use that then to steer themselves. But again, they can't flap. They can't generate more thrust. They're just gliding, slowing the inevitable descent, and hopefully landing on a tree trunk where they're safe from whatever may have threatened them. Similar thing with flying frogs. They have webs between very long fingers, and they can maneuver themselves in a glide. Very cool. And then you may be wondering what this very weird looking pink thing is here. This is, maybe I'll move so you can see well on this side. Down here in the bottom left, this is a mammal called a colugo. There are two species in Southeast Asia and the Philippines. Their closest living relative are the primates, like us. And as you can see here, from their fingers, between their forelimbs and their hind limbs, all around the tail, there are a giant membrane of skin. And so the mother here is holding a baby on her belly. You may be able to just see that. And like the lizard and the frog, they're able to jump off tree trunks, extend their skin all around their bodies, and soar for some distance through the rainforest. Again, cannot flap, so they're gliding. This lets them escape predators, move quickly from tree to tree. So it's an incredible adaptation. And then this one is not technically gliding, but it was so cool I had to just pop it in here. Made it small in case there's any other arachnophobes in the room like me. But scientists have recently found that some spiders are able to emit small strands of silk that don't just catch the wind and fly. In total still air, they're still able to gain lift. And the reason is the strands of silk are responding to electrostatic charges in the air. So if you picture your hair standing up when you rubbed it with a balloon or something, it's a similar effect. And the spiders have tiny little hairs on their legs that are able to sense electric fields. And when they sense the conditions are right, it's often used by baby spiders right after they hatch, they'll climb up onto tall objects, stick their abdomens in the air like you see this one doing, and emit these little threads of silk. And they can travel thousands of feet in the air and many miles through this electrostatic form of movement. So amazing. Some caterpillars and some mites are able to do that as well. So this is a very quick, very selective overview of some of the ways that animals have figured out how to defy gravity. But I really want to dig in today to powered flight. Powered flight has evolved only 4 times in the history of life on Earth. You're probably able to think of at least 3 of those pretty quickly, but we're going to survey him here a bit. So on the next slide, the first animals that evolved powered flight in the history of Earth were the insects. Sometime between 350 and 400 million years ago, there was a lineage of insects that evolved flight. And those insects have now diversified into many of the winged animals that we're familiar with today, from butterflies to mosquitoes and flies, to praying mantises, to cockroaches, to ants, wasps, and bees. And they've been beetles, certainly. Tens of thousands of species have emerged over the last 350 to 400 million years. But one of the pinnacles of flight in the animal world and of hunting in the animal world are the dragonflies. The dragonflies have had a very similar body plan for the last 250 to 300 million years because they're such an incredibly successful organism. So they have 4 wings. The wings are both stiff and flexible. Each wing is controlled by a separate clump of muscles. So the wings can each be steered independently. And so when a dragonfly is flying, it's able to, some species are able to generate speeds of 35 to 40 miles an hour. They can generate an acceleration of up to 4G using their own muscular strength. And they have an incredible hunting capability such that if a dragonfly is perched on a stick, when you're walking around by a lake, a pond, you'll often see them sitting on vegetation. When they see a swarm of insects fly by, the dragonfly has the ability, first of all, to lock onto a single target. A lot of prey species have safety in numbers, right? We've all heard that expression, because it confuses a predator when there are too many different things moving around. The dragonfly can lock onto one target and a swarm of insects, filter everything else out. It launches itself off its perch. So the prey insect is moving, right? The dragonfly is maybe facing this way, the prey is going this way, and it's able to launch itself. It immediately turns its body in the direction that the prey is moving by beating one pair of wings backwards and the other pair of wings forwards to generate a turn. It's moving its head independently to keep the prey in the sharpest part of its range of vision, which is about 360 degrees. And then it tracks the prey from underneath, because the prey can't see it. So all of a sudden, from underneath, here comes the dragonfly up and grabs the prey. Very few animals are able to track not the separate trajectory and momentum of the prey relative to their own movement. Even things like lions have a much simpler hunting style. So with a tiny little cluster of nerves in this dragonfly, it's able to perform incredible feats of flight and hunting. So that's one of the reasons they've been so successful for so long. At a time in Earth's history when the oxygen was much higher in our atmosphere, there were huge dragonflies and related insects that had wingspans of up to 28 inches. So I think it's a good thing, given their hunting abilities, that they're a little smaller for all of us today. So on the next slide, we're going to transition to talking about the other three groups of animals that have evolved flight. All three groups of animals that we'll talk about next are vertebrates. They're animals like us. They have internal skeletons, they have backbones, they have 4 limbs in their body plan. So in order to fly, right, you have to have an airfoil. You have to have your limbs modified into some kind of surface that lets you maintain lift in flight. And birds have done this with incredible precision and variety over about 150 million years of evolutionary history. We now know that they started evolving well before the extinction event that killed off the rest of the dinosaurs. Birds, of course, are theropod dinosaurs. They're related to Tyrannosaurus rex, to velociraptors and dromaeosaurs, and they're a specialized form of that lineage of ancient dinosaurs that managed to survive the extinction that killed off everything else. If you look at the bones in a bird's wing, there are exact analogs to the bones in a human arm. There's a humerus, there's a radius and an ulna, and then there are the bones that make up our hands and fingers. But the majority of the surface area in a bird's wing is created by feathers. So rather than skin like we saw in some of the gliding animals, the feathers are what provides that rigidity and stability to keep the bird moving in flight. This is a common swift, Apis apis. It's very widespread across Europe and northern Asia. And some researchers in China about 10 years ago attached a specialized computer chip to the feet of some of these birds that were nesting in Beijing, China in the summer. And what they found after tracking them for a year is that the common swift leaves its nesting grounds in Beijing after the summer is over, flies all the way across Asia, through the Middle East, and deep into sub-Saharan Africa, where they spend the winter hunting insects in the warm tropical environment. In the spring, they reverse course, do it all over again, come back to nest. For 9 months, these birds did not set foot on the ground. They stayed in the air for that entire migration and the entire winter period and all the way back. The air is their habitat, just like the sea is a habitat for a sea turtle that really only needs to come to shore to nest and raise its young. Just an incredible feat. One of the ways that they're able to do this is by going to sleep with one half of their brain at a time, so that they're always keeping some alertness and some vision going, and so they're able to just stay aloft for months and really don't need the land. Just amazing. Another quick bird story, which I love because it took place right here in San Diego. Next slide. A friend of mine named Drew Lucas is a professor at UC San Diego. One of his students is a big surfer, probably not a surprise, And the surfer noticed that when he's out there on the water, brown pelicans are just constantly cruising past him on the water, right? And I'm sure most of you have seen this too, just inches above the water. It's incredible to look at. And so this student got curious about what's happening, how is this possible, especially when there's no wind, right? Because even animals that are capable of powered flight, like this pelican, can take off from the water, can take off from the land, can flap to keep itself generating thrust in the air. It's an enormous amount of energy though. And so even powered flyers look for shortcuts to maintain their time in the air with minimum energy expenditure. And so when there's no wind, pelicans are still able to fly along over the surface of the water without flapping for long distances. So this PhD student is wondering, how is that possible? They're not flapping, there's no wind, how are they still soaring along just inches above the water? And what he found is that gentle waves on the surface of the ocean generate micro updrafts of wind. So if you've stood on the cliffs at La Jolla or something and felt the wind rushing up because it's hitting the cliff and going vertical, that's the same thing is happening, but at the level of the surface of the water. And so the pelicans are able to find and utilize these micro updrafts created by the waves and just soar for long distances, inches over the water, without using any energy by flapping their powerful wings. So the other reason I love this story, this paper just came out this spring. And I think this reminds us how much there still is to discover even in very densely populated, heavily studied environments like the oceans of Southern California for very common and familiar species like the brown pelican. So to the conversation that we had earlier, the song that we sang, there's so much still to wonder about, there's so much still to discover, and I love the way that this story reminds us of that. Okay, so birds are the middle child. Remember I said that there are 3 vertebrate lineages that have evolved powered flight. Evolutionarily, birds are the middle child. We're going to jump to the youngest on the next slide. Probably guess, this is the bats. The bats are probably most closely related to rodents or primates. Their evolutionary history is still subject to some debate. But they evolved after the extinction event that killed off almost all of the dinosaurs and let mammals diversify into a lot of the ecological niches that used to be filled by dinosaurs. So all of a sudden, probably about 60 million years ago, the bats take to the air. And you can see a little bit in this image. When we go to the next one in a minute, you'll see a little better. But they have a different strategy in some ways than birds. A lot of similar adaptations. They have a lot of muscle mass in their chest, their pectoral muscles, which is what generates the contractions to create lift when they flap their wings. Some of these powered flyers in the vertebrate world can have 20 to 30% of their entire body weight as their pectoral muscles. In a human, it's maybe 1% if you have well-developed pectoral muscles. So they tend to have a large keel on their breastbone where all of that muscle mass attaches. You can see it in a Thanksgiving turkey. So like birds, bats have a keeled sternum, huge pectoral muscles to power those flight muscles. But unlike birds, they don't have feathers, right? So they have a different strategy for creating that airfoil. Still modified versions of the same bones that all of us vertebrates have in our forelimbs, but the fingers, as you can see at about the midpoint of the wing, what are analogous to our fingers are hugely elongated in the bats and support this very thin membrane of skin, which also wraps all the way through the back legs and connects the tail. So this creates a large airfoil for the bats to soar, to fly rather. And in fact, they can also use, you see how this animal has its legs and its tail spread out. When they're hunting insects, they'll cup the back legs and the tail together as a net to catch the insects as they fly through, and then just bend down and scoop them up. This bat has its mouth wide open. As you may know, bats, of course, are not blind, like the common saying, but they do use sound to navigate in the darkness. And so the bat's larynx, like our voice box, is modified to produce extremely intense, high-pitched sounds. And they can hear the echoes coming back from insects and other things in front of them in the pitch black. And so they're able, you can also see the huge ears, they're able to navigate toward objects by the sound that's bouncing back from the cries that they make. So quickly on the next slide, This, because it's light in the background, shows a little bit more of the bone structure in the bat's wing. This is a flying fox from the South Pacific. They can have wingspans of up to 4 feet, and they mostly eat fruit from large trees instead of insects like the smaller bats. But again, you can see at about the midpoint of the wing, the fingers that start to come out and create the structure for those massive wings. Okay, they're the youngest. The oldest lineage of vertebrates that evolved flight are on the next slide. And these are the pterosaurs. Pterosaurs were not dinosaurs. They lived at the same time as dinosaurs. They are related to dinosaurs in the same way that crocodiles are related to dinosaurs. It's a group of reptiles called the archosaurs. Pterosaurs had powered flight capabilities for about 140 million years. But then they all died out at the extinction event that killed the dinosaurs as well. So we have no pterosaurs that have survived. I think it's a tragedy in some ways that we'll never be able to see these incredible animals, which were reptiles that could fly. They filled many of the same ecological niches that birds do today, like albatrosses, like crows, like small fruit-eating birds, like cedar waxwings, huge range of sizes. And they were able to fly because, like the birds and the bats, their forelimbs were modified to support a wing, in this case also a skin wing like a bat. But what we would call a pinky finger as humans was elongated to a length more than the rest of their arm bones combined. And that pinky finger went on for several feet and was able to support the weight of their wing and the stiffness that it needed to fly. Like birds and bats, they have a keeled sternum, tons of muscle tissue on the chest that powered their flight. And on the next slide, one of the really, really cool things that scientists have been working on over the last decade, based on some initially fragmentary fossils that are being more and more well discovered, is that some pterosaurs, shortly before the extinction event that killed them all off, had evolved gigantic size. And you can see here the comparison to a Maasai giraffe and a human. The artist here is Mark Whitten. He's a fabulous researcher and artist. His wife is there for scale in the picture. But what scientists have discovered is that even these massive 15, 20-foot pterosaurs with 30 to 40-foot wingspans were also capable of powered flight. And that encountered a lot of resistance early on because people just sort of dismissed the idea that an animal standing 20 feet tall, weighing 500 pounds, could actually launch itself into the air. But through analysis of fossilized tracks and some comparative anatomy studies, what they've discovered is that the pterosaurs walked around on 4 limbs, not 2 limbs like you see in some of the older sci-fi stuff, but they walked around on all 4s. That pinky finger was sticking up behind them, holding the wing out of the way. When they were ready to fly, they pushed off first with their hind feet onto the knuckles on the forelimb, and then rotated forward and pushed, and that got them enough elevation to get in the first flap of those huge wings. They may have had to do it, albatrosses today are birds that require an oncoming wind. They have to kind of run down the runway, so to speak, to get enough lift like an airplane. These big pterosaurs may have needed some atmospheric assist like that as well. But just an absolutely phenomenal thing to think about, flying creatures under their own power, the size of today's giraffes. And on one hand, it's, I think, very sad that we don't get to experience those creatures firsthand. On the other hand, what a miracle that through our own ability to study science and recreate animals through art, we can at least start to imagine how amazing these creatures may have been. So, 3 vertebrate lineages that have evolved flight, and we're very lucky to share time and space with 2 of them today and be able to imagine what another one must have been like. So on the next slide, I have a few quick image credits, and on the final slide, I have one of my favorite animals, the hummingbird, a calliope hummingbird, which you have here in California. My Instagram is David Jeffrey Ringer. We are going to do some Q&A later on in the program, but with that, I will turn it back to Alexis, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna do the fun earrings today. Why'd I do that? Here we go. We all have those like crappy jobs when we're kids. So when I was a teenager, I worked in an aviary, but a privately owned one, mostly quail and egg collecting. But they had a bird, a parrot named Goofy, who was born with a neuromuscular condition that made it so it couldn't fly. And one of my jobs, this is a real grown-up job, was to put him on my shoulder, take him to the attic stairs, and run up and down the stairs while he put his wings out going, yay! So I miss Goofy the parrot. But yeah, we have, us mammals love our flying, don't we? All right, time for sing songs. Let's sing a song.
Oh, lying in my bed, I hear the clock tick and think of you, caught up in circles. Confusion is nothing new. Flashback, warm nights, almost left behind. Suitcase memories. Time after sometimes you picture me. I'm walking too far ahead. You're calling to me. I can't hear what you said. And then you say, go slow. I fall behind me. Sing those again. If you're lost, you can look and you will find me. Time after time. If you fall, I will catch you. Be waiting. Time after time. So after my picture fades and darkness has turned to gray, watching through windows, you're wondering if I'm okay. Oh, secrets stolen from deep inside. The drum beats out of time. If you're lost, you can look and you will find me. Time after time. If you fall, I will catch you. I'll be waiting. Time after time. If you're lost, you can look and you will find me. Time after time. If you fall, I will catch you. I'll be waiting. Time after time. Time after time. Time after time. Time after time.
Woo. Thanks, Paul. This is the point in our assembly where we have a personal moment, which can be any story from life. Originally, when Sunday Assembly was first started, it was Pippa Evans, the co-founder, sharing this time Pippa doing her best. And she's a comedian, so this was hilarious. But eventually it became any assembler coming up going, you know what, I did my best at this time. And then we realized sometimes not doing your best is also a great story, so now it can be absolutely anything at all. So if you are interested in sharing your story, you can reach out to one of us on the board and we can help you. We can do, if you don't feel comfortable talking in front of a microphone, we can have a reader for you, or we can help you massage your story until it's in story type shape. Anything you want to do, just let us know. We love this segment. And right now, I'm going to welcome Lelia Wesley, Do you need help up? Got a man on it? Got a forklift on it? Okay. Do you want to hold this? How's that? Can you read that?
This is my story about getting some cake. So everyone has that middle school boyfriend experience that you date for like a week and then are like, nah, I'm good. Well, that happened to me, but we dated for a little longer because I'm bad at breaking up with people. Yay. So it all started when I was bored during COVID times. We can all relate to that. I decided that I liked this guy, and I texted him to see if he wanted to go on a date, and he agreed. At first we texted a lot, but after a while I realized he wasn't ideal. He started to ghost me, which means he ignored me, and he didn't seem to care that I was in his life. And I mean, like this is me we're talking about. That's not allowed, okay? And when I confronted him about it, he deflected it and ignored me. So I had finally had enough of his shenanigans, and I came up with a multi-step plan that would ensure victory. Step 1, get all my friends and 8 at the time to leave me alone so I could talk to him. Step 2, stress about it the whole day. Obviously, that's a must. Step 3, talk to my friends for moral support. My best friend Grace sent me a TikTok that said, dump his ass. And that gave me so much confidence. So I was like, yeah, we're doing this. Step 4, talk to him how he's not being an involved boyfriend and I want to break up with him. Now all I have to do is actually follow through. So first, I told my aide to give me some space at the end of school. That was gonna go wrong later, just you wait. And then, later in the day, I told my friend Anna to leave me alone. She actually followed directions unlike some people. And then, I was about to tell him, but first some backstory. I told all my family about this, and they were all very supportive and wanted me to dump him as soon as possible. And I was like, okay, all right. To the point where my aunt was offering to do it for me. How sweet. As you could have guessed, once I told my mom about this story, she was very excited that I finally did it. So I was about to talk to him, but then his dumb friends decided to come over while we were talking. And so I didn't know how to talk to him without embarrassing him in front of his friends. So I tried to shoo off his friends. And I said that he was being a bad boyfriend. And we hadn't talked in a really long time. And he was brushing it off and trying to avoid this situation because he has confrontational issues. Lucky me. And so I followed him all the way to the parking lot where we were about to be picked up. And he was making excuses like, oh my gosh, my mom's coming, I gotta go soon. And I was like, where is she? I don't see her. We can talk now. At this point, my aide had come looking for me, even though I told her to go home. And now his dumb friends are back. And I'm like, excuse me, I am trying to dump my boyfriend here. So rude. The nerve. I finally got the people to back off a tiny bit so I could talk to him. And he said, yeah, maybe we should just be friends until... And I cut him off and I'm like, agreed, and left. And then when I got to the car with Mom, I told her about it, and she said that her mom offered to throw her a party for breaking up with her first boyfriend back in the day. But my mom was trying to be all grown up and said she didn't need a party or cake. Apparently, she always regretted this because she immediately started on the cake as soon as we got home. Laura, next slide, please. The first picture was what the cake looked like once my little brother saw it, so he wouldn't know my business or see the bad word and repeat it in elementary school. So we went home and had a party with a cake that said "dumped his ass" in honor of my friend Grace's wisdom. But now, me and my ex are pretty close friends, so don't tell him. You saw nothing. Anyways, this experience has taught me a valuable lesson. Not to date jerks. And if I do, maybe don't wait a whole year to break up with them. But in the end, I did it. I dumped his ass. Thank you.
I will forever be grateful that my kids' first dating experience happened during a pandemic where they couldn't get within 6 feet of each other. Way to go, easy on mom. Alrighty. Shuffling papers, shuffling papers. So this assembly's theme is information, and we liked it because information is informative, but birds also fly information. And some birds will make a V pattern where the first bird's directing them and the others are like enjoying the lift of wind and having an easier time, and they can switch out and they fly in community together. And if that's not exactly accurate, it's not like there's a bird expert 10 feet from me. Oh, okay, cool. Check. So I love that idea about us as a community flying together toward a goal, that we are all in this together. And I originally was going to talk today about my family's experience with the orthodontist, how it turns out when one tooth breaks away from your bite, takes all your bottom jaw with it. And that was funny, but it got me thinking, is that really the most positive message about being information? That one rotten apple ruins the barrel, or one free thinker ruins the group think? Like, we understand that there's difference between conformity and community, working together and falling in line. So I wanted to make that distinction, because if you're flying in a V and there's a hawk, do you keep flying in formation? That would lead to death. You scatter, you do what you need to do so you can come back together safely. And today, we came back together safely. But I want to share one woman's story about her part in all of this. And her name is Katie Carrico. Now, this is a true story. Katie was born in 1950s, I think 1955 if I did my math right, in Hungary. Her father was a butcher. She knew she wanted to be a scientist, and she decided to be a scientist even having never met another scientist in her life. She got her PhD in Hungary, and she worked at the Bio Research Center there until it ran out of money. Now, this could be the end of the story. Often scientists work until they run out of money, until they run out of grant money. But she found a lab that would let her study her passion all the way in the US, in Philadelphia at Temple University. So she packed up her tiny family, and at the time, the Hungarian government only allowed $100 out of the country, and I didn't do a lot of research on that, if that was a deterrent for leaving or just some economic policy or what that was about. So Katie's in her 60s now, this would have been in her 20s, so that was a while back. So how she got around it is she took her 2-year-old daughter's stuffed teddy bear and she ripped it open and she stuffed about $1,200, 900 pounds into this teddy bear, sewed it up. And this is before real good TSA cameras. And she got here so she could actually start a life with her family and do her passion, which was working in a lab on her bench. She loved her bench, her lab bench. And of course, if you could zoom out on Katie's life as a scientist, you would see that it was marked with failure after failure. Most of the failure in getting grants. She was, by all account, a sucky grant writer. That was not her passion. Her passion was doing the science. At one point, she was without a mic, without a lab partner. The chairperson of her department had quit or left. She was without a lab and without $1. And still she continued doing anything she could to stay in the lab, any lab. At one point, there was a water cooler moment where she met a doctor who was working on, at the time, an HIV vaccine. And she said, you know what my specialty is? Messenger RNA. I've studied it my whole life. That is my one singular focus. All my grants are for that. I didn't diversify. When we ran out of money, I just kept at this one thing because I see its potential. And I bet you I could help in your HIV vaccine. So the doctor at the water cooler, Dr. Weissman, said, okay, why don't you join my lab? And she said, great, I'm going to make this work. Did it work? No. She tried it in blood vessels. It failed. She tried it in rats. In rabbits, actually, first. Rabbits that were prone to strokes. And she tried to get the messenger RNA to get them to make proteins. If anyone's not familiar with messenger RNA or mRNA, imagine your cells in your body as like a 3D printer, and this is the code you put in to make the proteins. But of course, it wouldn't work. She got it to work in a petri dish, got super excited, and then put it in a rat, and the rat got super sick, really sick. In fact, she couldn't get it into a body that wouldn't reject it. The bodies would just feel it was an invading, thing in your body, and it would just, these poor rats would get super inflammatory issues, stop eating. What was going on? Failure after failure after failure, with at one point her husband saying that she was practically working for $1 an hour with all the overtime and weekends she was putting in, because she knew mRNA was the ticket to something big. In this analogy, she sees the shadow of the hawk, and she's the first bird breaking out of formation. And all the other birds are like, what the heck? They don't understand. They think she's weird. They're not supporting her. And she's kind of in her own little niche. Now, the breakthrough happened, like that breakthrough there. They're getting away. The breakthrough happened when they found out that tRNA, the transfer RNA, was totally, to use the scientific term, chill in the body. It was not causing the body to wig out. So they found out it was due to a molecule I can't pronounce that same molecule was also found in naturally occurring messenger RNA. So they took that molecule and they stuck it into their synthetic mRNA, and wouldn't you know it, it worked. So what do you do if you're a scientist and your thing finally works? You write some grants. So Dr. Kriko and Dr. Weissman just started writing grants, like, give us money, this will work. Can you imagine? We can make any protein you want. We just have to put the code in. And nothing. Most of their grants were denied. The scientific journals, when it touched them, it was, again, pretty much failure. The rest of the bird's information were not breaking over a shadow or over a possibility. They were information and rigid about it. Of course, one day, they put mRNA that Katie had developed into a monkey, and they told it, you make some red blood cells. And then they tested the monkey's blood, and for the first time ever, that monkey's red blood cell count skyrocketed. It worked. 2 companies then took notice, finally. You might have heard of them, little-known companies. One was called Moderna, one was called Pfizer. Katie saw the hawk shadow in the sky, and she did something about it to help us beat it off. When coronavirus first came out, And the Chinese government released the DNA sequence of this coronavirus. It took Moderna 2 days to come up with a vaccine for it based on messenger RNA, thanks to Katie. It took Pfizer a matter of hours. All the work was done. The foundation was there. Katie didn't do this alone. There were many scientists, some that were in charge of getting that mRNA strand. You know how cells have a phospholipid bilayer? So they had to put them in a lipid bubble to get them into the cells. And then there was other scientists that had to work on, mapping out that spike protein to tell it what to attack. And all of that was like, I heard 25 years of work right there. And it just felt like in my head, I'm reading this story and I see this scientist over here breaking out of his formation and this one here, and Katie's at the head, and they're going forward together in a new formation to protect all the birdies from the hawk. When Pfizer did its first trial and it was successful, Katie said, and I quote, "Oh, it worked? I thought so." And then, and this is why I love her, she ate an entire box of chocolate-covered peanuts, which the New York Times article I read on this was sure to note, by herself. She ate this by herself. So, I just want to say, how does that relate to our community here? We are flying information together against, for a common goal together. And I want the Katies in our audience to feel like they have the wingspan and the support to do their own thing and still be part of our community. So I challenge every one of you to look at your neighbors and think, how can I support you all? What can I do for you? And to be very honest, I need help. I need something. And we can all fly together. Thank you very much. And now we'll have our moment of silent reflection. If you're going to give an announcement, you can make your way up. I think the other ones are Laura. All right, announcements. Camille?
Tonight at 6 o'clock, we'll be having a bonfire at Bonita Cove across from Belmont Park. We have some juice pouches. Oh, it's kid-friendly. We have juice pouches, chips, and some wood to start us off. Bring a COVID-safe snack or some wood to keep the fire going. It probably won't go that late since it's a Sunday and I have an early flight in the morning, but it should be a good time, so come join us at Bonita Cove across from Belmont Park.
Hello. Some of you know that we've been doing Taco Tuesdays every Tuesday since COVID started, but Tuesday evening, 6 o'clock, jump onto Zoom real fast. It's like check in, say hi. That's it. We're just connecting and sharing stories and making sure that we're all still in each other's lives. So we're just going to keep that going as long as people still continue to come. We'll keep doing it. Thanks. We've also done a game night. It's the second and the fourth Sunday. The thing that has been the easiest and the most fun consistently is categories. I hear people go, never played before. And pencil, paper, that's all you need. And the more you play, the better you get. It's super fun. I lose like a lot. So it's just there for the fun. All good. Please join. It's super fun. And the third one is we're bringing back the restaurants again so we can break bread together. This doesn't have to be a dinner, so it's not the night before the assembly anymore. It's whenever. So the next one is October 2nd at 6:30, Himalayan cuisine in La Mesa. It's very much like Indian food. It's so super good. Get the sweet naan. Oh my God, this stuff's amazing. The place is quite large. There's going to be plenty of space, so come on down and keep your eyes peeled for more roaming restaurants coming in the future. If you have a restaurant that you think is awesome and it has room for, 4 to 10 people, let us know. If you want to host, we can pop it up on, create a graphic for you, and we'll get it up and pick a day and we'll knock it out. Hang out. Thank you.
And there's an annual event in Sacramento, California Free Thought Day, for those interested. This year, again, they're going to do a virtual event, so we can join from San Diego without having to fly up. It's going to be, you've heard of Cy Babe, the science communicator, and Ian Harris, the comedian, and they're going to have authors and podcasters in the free thought community, and I'm one of the authors, so you can hear about my new book if you join on Zoom. It's going to be October 10th on a Sunday. We are always on the lookout for new events, speakers. If you have ideas about speakers or restaurants or anything, please let one of us know. This is definitely not a small group of people deciding things for a large group of people kind of event. We want it to be a more flat structure, and speak up, and we will try to make it happen and try to help you facilitate maybe your own event if you'd like to. Alrighty, Paul. Can you sing for me?
We're all going to sing for you.
Yay.
So, there's been an awful lot of not love going on. We're all sort of bumping into it all the time, and so it seemed like this might be a good fun song to sing, because it's true. Love, 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 love. There's nothing you can do that can't be done. Nothing you can sing that can't be sung. Nothing you can say, but you can learn to play the game. It's easy. Nothing you can make that can't be made. No one you can save that can't be saved. Nothing you can do, but you can learn to be you in time. It's easy. All you need is love. Sing it out with me now. All you need is love. All you need is love. Love is all. Isn't known. Nothing you can see that isn't shown. Nowhere you can be that isn't the where you're meant to be. It's easy. All you need is love. Let me hear you now. All you need is love. All you need is love. Love. Love is all you need. All you need is love. All together now. All you
Our next assembly is October 17th. We're going to have a cool topic involving Cuba and diplomats and science and stuff. Please continue to join us in fellowship here. We're going to eat snacks and drink coffee. And if you want to hang out in the back, we can just keep distance and take masks off outside. So thank you so much. This was our first in-person assembly in forever. I'm so excited. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Zoomies, for joining us out in Texas and Portland and a few other places. Thank you to all our Zoomblers. And join us. And
by
that's
the way,
a wrap.
Zoomblers, I think I figured out the audio problem, so maybe next time we won't have audio problems. We'll come up with some other problems to have.
And Paul's guaranteed a streamless assembly next time.